So when applying airbrush makeup, you want to remember a couple of key factors. We've already completed skin prep. However, if you are planning on applying a traditionally applied eye with powdered pigments or even a brow with powdered pigments, you want to be sure to apply those prior to applying the TEMPTU foundation to the skin so as to prevent fallout from adhering to your beautiful foundation application. If you are applying an airbrushed eye, I know that we've already used a primer on her skin for the beauty application, but I will say that eye makeup application with an airbrush will require a separate priming action. Do not use the base primer to prime the eyelid. It will need a special primer for that. When trying to determine what shades of foundation to use on your client, you'll want to skin tone match them very similarly to any other makeup application. You'll want to swatch the skin between the jawline and the neck. Now, I usually recommend grabbing 2 to 3 shades of makeup to do this, and I like to use a palette and work from there. So just a couple drops of each shade that you're using, and we'll swatch this on with a brush or your finger. Turn your head this way a tiny bit, and we're going to swatch all the way down into the neck, and then we're going to grab the next shade and swatch all the way down into the neck. Now, as you can see, these 2 shades separately don't create a match, but what happens when we mix them together? And you can actually do that directly on the skin and then blend it in very lightly, and you'll notice that you're starting to see everything work really well together. If you start applying the makeup and you see that maybe it's a little too light, or maybe it's a little too dark, or maybe it's just a little bit too warm or cool, the great thing about airbrush makeup is we can add to the airbrush directly, mix in an adjusting color, and keep going with our application, and it will not affect the overall result. It's actually very easy to change directions when airbrushing. Let's go ahead and mix some products together in the airbrush. These are the 2 shades that I've decided to use on my model. I'm going to do maybe like a 3/4 the lighter shade and 1/4 the darker shade, but you decide what you need to use for your situation and remember what you used. Airbrush makeup is measured in drops. So we don't fill the mixing cup all the way up. For a guideline, a light application is around 12 to 14 drops of makeup. And you can work your way up to full coverage using 20 to 25 drops of makeup. In the grand scheme of things, 1/4 ounce bottle of foundation can get you 20 to 30 makeup applications, depending on the level of coverage. So if you do the math there, that's a lot of makeup in one little bottle. Airbrush makeup is extremely economical as a professional artist. We're going to go ahead and grab our mixing brush and stir them together, focusing on placing most of the pigment in the inner well that's closest to where the needle passes through the front of the airbrush. The other thing you could do is back bubble. So what you can do is turn the airbrush on low, plug the needle end of the airbrush, lightly pull back on that soft touch control and stir it up using the back bubbling. Then I like to test it on my hand or on a tissue, and then we can go ahead and move on. When we're applying foundation to the face, you want to be anywhere from 2 to 4 inches away from the face and moving all the time. So after you've prepped the skin, the next thing to do is spot treat. That can also be concealing under the eye. It can be evening the skin tone if somebody has maybe some redness in their cheeks. There are a lot of different things we're targeting in this step, but the overall goal is to correct the underlying shade, red, purple, blue, anything like that. So when looking at my model's face, all I'm seeing is that I'd like to even out the skin tone on her chin, and I'd like to brighten her under eye area. Using our color theory knowledge, we can use the appropriate color corrector. Now, I like to use the pre-filled pods for this. Perfect Canvas has a color corrector line, and this is the peach shade. So I'm gonna go ahead and use this to brighten up her under eyes and to correct any blue tones or cooler tones in the under eye area. I'm going to work on low because we're up close and personal to the face. And remember, when you're airbrushing with the pre-filled pods, you do need to make sure you unplug the pod before you attach it to the air. Go ahead and close your eyes for me. You're going to be relatively close and just always keeping that airbrush moving in baby circles or in a light swooping motion, but working back and forth between each eye so that you're giving each layer time to dry. Remember, everything is about light buildable layers when it comes to airbrush makeup. So you don't have to be in a hurry because we're already shortcutting by applying and blending in one step. This is pass number 2 under the eyes. And remember that you can change the angle of your airbrush depending on where you're trying to get the makeup. If I'm trying to get underneath the lash line, I can go right underneath there by aiming upwards. And if I'm trying to get, let's say, in the tear trough area, I can aim down. And then in the chin area to brighten the skin in the chin, just little baby circles. In that area, I'd like to add a little warmth to. And go until you see things start to really even out before you move to your foundation application.